If you only do what's easy, life will be hard. But if you learn to do what's hard, life gets easier. That one truth can completely change how you live. The real battle isn't outside, it's in your own mind. Your brain is wired to avoid anything that feels uncomfortable, painful, or unfamiliar. That's why you keep pushing things off. That's why you keep doing what feels safe. But growth never happens in safety. Nothing improves when you keep choosing what's easy. This isn't a motivation problem, it's a decision problem. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to force your brain to do the hard things without waiting to feel ready. You'll learn how to stop overthinking, stop delaying, and start acting with purpose. This is for people who are tired of watching their potential go to waste. You're not weak, you're not broken. You just haven't learned how to lead your mind. Until now. This is how real change begins. Stay with it. Chapter 1. Tell your brain you're doing it, not asking. You've got to start telling your brain what's going to happen. Not ask. Not suggest, not hope. You decide, you declare, and then you follow through. That's the beginning of all strength. You can't keep living your life negotiating with your own mind. Because the truth is, if you keep asking your brain for permission to do the hard things, it will almost always say no. Your brain loves comfort. It loves the easy way. It wants you to stay safe, relaxed, and unchanged. It wants to conserve energy. But the problem is, that kind of thinking will keep you small. The first step to real growth is to understand this. Your brain isn't the boss unless you let it be. You are the one who makes the decisions. You are the one who sets the tone. You are the one who takes the lead. And it begins when you stop asking your brain, "Do I feel like doing this?" and start saying, "I'm doing this." That simple shift changes everything. Because once you remove the option of negotiation, you also remove the excuses. You remove the space for fear to grow. You remove the temptation to wait for the perfect mood, the perfect timing, or the perfect motivation. You take action before doubt can step in. That's how progress is made. That's how strength is built, not by asking if it feels right, but by doing it because it's right. So many people stay stuck because they're still trying to feel ready. They think they'll take action once the fear is gone, once they feel motivated. But here's the reality, they're never going to feel ready. And that's not a flaw, that's the system. The mind is designed to protect, not to push. So if you want to break that cycle, you've got to start taking charge. You wake up in the morning and instead of rolling around in bed thinking, "Do I want to get up yet?" you tell yourself, "I'm getting up now." You've got work to do, not because you feel inspired, but because you said you would. You've got a workout to finish, not because your body feels light and strong, but because you made a commitment to yourself. You've got a project to start, not because you've got the perfect plan, but because you know nothing gets better by waiting. This is the discipline of decision. And it's not just about showing up, it's about showing up with strength, with clarity, with purpose. You have to understand this. Discipline is not something you wait to feel. It's something you practice by doing. And it begins with the way you talk to yourself. It begins with the way you handle that voice in your head that says, "Maybe later." No, not later. Now. You don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to do it. Because every time you take action without asking for permission from your feelings, you're building a stronger version of yourself. You're showing your brain that you're in charge, and over time, your brain adapts. It learns to follow your lead. It stops fighting you and starts working with you. But that only happens when you stay consistent, when you make decision after decision without waiting to be in the mood, when you start to see that your life isn't shaped by what you want, it's shaped by what you're willing to do without comfort. And that's what most people miss. They wait, they delay, they hope for easier days. But life doesn't get easier, you get stronger. You build mental muscle the same way you build physical muscle, by doing what's difficult, by choosing effort over ease, by telling your brain what's going to happen and following through even when it pushes back. That's what separates the successful from the stuck, the disciplined from the drifting, the ones who grow from the ones who give up. You've got to learn to shut the door on doubt. You've got to learn to stand firm when your emotions try to talk you out of action. You've got to learn to say, "This is what I'm doing," and then do it, without checking how you feel about it every 5 minutes. This is not about being harsh with yourself, it's about being honest. It's about understanding that your feelings are not always aligned with your goals. Your brain is not always going to offer you support. Sometimes it will give you resistance. That's okay. You just don't have to follow it, because that's what it means to grow up mentally. That's what it means to take responsibility for your path. You stop letting your brain run on autopilot. You stop letting your energy be drained by decisions that don't need to be made. You wake up and you act, because action builds power. And once you get into that rhythm, something incredible starts to happen. You stop fearing hard things. You stop avoiding the challenge. You begin to crave it, not because it's easy, but because it makes you better, because it separates you from the old version of yourself, because it brings you closer to who you're trying to become. Most people don't know how to deal with hard things because they've trained their brains to avoid them. You've got to do the opposite. You've got to teach your brain that discomfort is not a warning sign, it's a signal for growth. Every time you feel resistance, it's an invitation to push through, an invitation to prove to yourself that you don't fold under pressure, an invitation to become someone you can respect. But it starts when you stop asking your brain for permission, when you stop treating your motivation like it's your master, when you stop letting hesitation have the final word. You are not here to live soft. You are not here to coast through life on low energy and wishful thinking. You are here to grow, to rise, to build, to lead. And that starts with your thoughts. That starts with your inner commands. That starts with how you respond to that voice that says you don't feel like it. Because if you keep listening to that voice, you'll always stay where you are. But if you challenge it, if you look it in the eye and say, "I'm not asking, I'm doing," you create change, real change, the kind of change that compounds over time, the kind of change that makes you stronger day after day, and the kind of change that rewires your identity and reshapes your future. So the next time your brain says, "I don't want to do that," you say, "We're doing it anyway." You don't wait, you don't ask, you move. And that's when transformation starts. When you stop giving your brain the option to quit. When you stop asking for comfort and start demanding results. When you start living by action, not by emotion. You already have what it takes. You've just got to stop giving your brain the option to decide for you. You decide, you move, you lead. That's how you force your brain to do hard things. Not by waiting, not by wishing, but by deciding with strength and never looking back. Chapter 2. Stand up the moment your mind says wait. When your mind says wait, that's the exact moment you need to move. That small pause, that quiet hesitation, that split second of delay. It's not just a thought, it's a test. It's your brain trying to protect you from discomfort, from effort, from anything that feels unfamiliar or difficult. And if you obey that voice even once, you reinforce weakness. You teach your mind that hesitation is allowed. You give it room to grow. And before you know it, that voice gets louder, stronger, more convincing. But if you stand up in that exact moment, if you break the pattern by doing the opposite of what your mind suggests, you take back control. That's where change begins. Not tomorrow, not later, not when it feels right. Right there. In the moment your mind says, not now. Every breakthrough in life begins with one choice: to move when your instincts say, stay. It's not always about big things. Sometimes it's as small as getting off the couch. Sometimes it's picking up the phone. Sometimes it's walking out the door when you'd rather stay inside. The moment itself doesn't have to be dramatic, but the decision is. The decision is where your power lives, because the longer you wait, the harder it gets. Every second you sit in hesitation makes the task feel heavier than it really is. Your brain starts stacking reasons to delay, building stories, creating excuses, and all of them sound believable. That's how it works. But the truth is, you don't need more time. You don't need a better feeling. You don't need to feel confident. You need to act. And you need to act fast, not just sometimes, every time. Because your brain learns through repetition. It watches what you do. If you train it to hesitate, it will keep doing that. If you train it to act on command, it will get better at that too. You become what you practice. Most people spend their whole life in delay. They don't even realize they're doing it. They say things like, "I'll do it later," or "I'm just thinking it through." But underneath those words is fear. Not fear of failure. Fear of discomfort. Fear of effort. Fear of temporary pressure. So they pause. They analyze. They wait. And the moment passes. You can't live like that anymore. You need to make a habit of immediate action. You need to become someone who does not tolerate delay, someone who respects their own time too much to waste it in indecision. Because the people who win in life, the ones who grow, the ones who succeed, are not the ones who always feel ready. They are the ones who act even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And the hardest time to act is always the first few seconds. That's where the battle is won or lost. Once you're moving, momentum builds. The brain starts catching up, the body gets involved. But you've got to win those first seconds. That's when your identity is shaped. That's when your habits are formed. That's when your future is decided. Don't listen to that voice that says, "Just wait a minute." Because that minute becomes an hour. That hour becomes a day, and that day becomes a habit. And you start seeing yourself as someone who doesn't follow through. That's how self-doubt grows, not from one big failure, but from 1,000 small moments where you said no to action and yes to comfort. When you stand up the moment your mind says wait, you create a new image of yourself. You start to believe deeply that you are someone who does what needs to be done. And that belief carries into everything: your work, your discipline, your health, your relationships. Every area of your life benefits when you stop negotiating with hesitation. It's not easy, but it's simple. You feel the resistance and you move anyway. You don't argue with it. You don't wait to feel like it. You don't need the mood. You don't need the music. You need to act. That's how the best habits are built. That's how self-respect is earned. That's how strength is developed. Not in theory, but in the moment. And once you start doing this regularly, something changes inside you. You stop avoiding pressure. You start leaning into it. You begin to understand that the discomfort you feel is a sign you're on the right track. It's not a warning. It's a signal that you're growing, that you're leaving behind the version of yourself that stayed stuck, that you're stepping into something higher. Most people never reach that place because they always stop when they feel the slightest resistance. But resistance is not the enemy. It's the gate. It's the path to everything you want. And the only way to walk through it is to ignore the wait signal in your brain and take the step anyway. This applies to everything. If you want to get in shape, the hardest part is walking to the gym. If you want to grow your income, the hardest part is making that uncomfortable call. If you want to heal, the hardest part is starting the conversation. The moment always feels hard until you move. And when you do move, everything shifts. The energy changes. The pressure lifts. You realize that the hard thing wasn't actually that hard. It only felt that way when you were sitting in hesitation. You've got to get out of your head and into your actions. Stop overthinking. Stop planning every detail. Stop waiting for the moment to feel easier. The longer you wait, the more power you give away. You're not here to live in hesitation. You're here to lead your own life. And leadership starts with action. Real, deliberate, fast action. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that doesn't delay. The kind that says, I'm doing this now. When that becomes your pattern, you become unstoppable. Because then your brain starts to work for you, not against you. It starts to understand that waiting is not part of your life anymore. It stops feeding you delays. It starts delivering solutions. But you've got to prove that first. You've got to show your brain that hesitation doesn't get a seat at the table anymore. And you show that by how you respond in the moment. It doesn't matter how tired you are. It doesn't matter how discouraged you feel. It doesn't matter if you're uncertain or overwhelmed. The moment your brain says, wait, you move. That's your new rule. No debate, no second thought. You'll be amazed how quickly things change. The more you act, the less time you spend stuck. The more decisions you make, the more clarity you gain. The more you move, the more power you feel. It becomes a cycle. A strong, productive, focused cycle. But you've got to start it. No one else can do it for you. No motivational quote will do it. No reminder from your phone. No push from someone else. It has to come from inside you. That firm decision to stop delaying your life. You've already waited long enough. Now it's time to build the habit of moving at the moment of resistance. That's where your life changes. That's where you rise. And the truth is, you don't need more time. You don't need more energy. You need one thing: the ability to act without delay. That one skill alone can change your entire future, because everything you want is on the other side of hesitation, and the only way through is to move when your brain says pause. So the next time your mind says wait, don't pause, stand up, do it, move into action. That is how you win. That is how you grow. That is how you change everything. Yeah, I love that, don't you? That's amazing.
Chapter 3. Decide now and don't open any negotiation. The moment you hesitate, you invite weakness. The moment you start thinking twice, you give away power. The strongest people you know aren't making a dozen decisions about the same thing. They make one decision and they close the door behind it. They don't keep coming back to it. They don't wonder if they should or shouldn't. They make the call and they move. That's how progress begins. That's how self-respect